Taking a look back at the Midsummer Derby, the Travers on Saturday, August the 8th. It's Tis the Law's world, and we're just living in it. We break from the gate. Tis the Law, the Belmont Stakes winner. Number 6, post position 5, breaks sweetly. Looks like a winner throughout, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, this was, really, at least in my opinion, was supposed to be Tis the Law's toughest test to date. As it turns out, this race was never in doubt. Manny Franco has this horse under a big hold right from the start, and this horse just absolutely dominates this field from start to finish.
And he breaks so well from the gate, he can always put himself in this sort of position. We saw this trip in the Belmont. Here's the trip he gets, 3-wide tracking. Uncle Chuck coming in with a big reputation from Southern California after beating Thousand Words in the Los Al Derby. And of course, Thousand Words came back to win the shared belief over Honor AP. He was hustled out of there to make the lead. Faster than Chivalry, who's a pretty fast horse. Uncle Chuck being, though, prompted by Tis the Law 3-wide, and Uncle Chuck was the disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they obviously had a plan with Uncle Chuck in this race. They wanted him on the lead, and they got it. And you're going to see here, he's already starting to come under some pressure. Tis the Law is going to move up to his outside. And I mean, he's just going to sit there, Dan. Uncle Chuck will go all in here around the second turn. And Manny Franco is just sitting chilly on Tis the Law, waiting to push the button in here. And you know what? Uncle Chuck was just no match for this horse.
For the first 5/8 of a mile of this race, Country Grammar was getting the exact same trip he received in winning the Peter Pan. He looked very comfortable tracking in the pocket. It looked like he was going to fire, but right now he's coming under pressure because he cannot stay with Tis the Law.
Yeah, the whip came out on Country Grammar. He did sit a good trip in this race. And listen, Tis the Law just didn't give anybody a chance in this race, Dan. I think there might be an initial sentiment here to look at all the other horses in here who you felt like maybe had a chance to beat him and be really disappointed. I'm really not looking at the race that way. Tis the Law is very, very good. This is a really fast race. And he's just too much for these horses. The other horses that finished far behind him, you could be disappointed with them. I'm just not, Dan. They just ran into an absolute buzzsaw on Saturday.
I agree, Mike. Caracaro and Max Player ran their race, didn't they? Caracaro very lightly raced, tried hard for second. He's a horse with a good amount of talent. He just ran into a tiger here. Max Player loomed boldly for an instant, turning into the stretch. He ran just fine. He's now run third in the Belmont and the Travers. It's nothing to sneeze at. But when Tis the Law throws a 109 Beyer speed figure at you, there's only so much those horses can do. Now it's on to the Kentucky Derby. There are going to be some wise guys out there that say, Tis the Law and just popped a 109 Beyer speed figure going 1.25 miles in the Travers. The Derby is right around the corner, and they're going to think he's a bounce candidate. I know you and I really don't handicap that way. Do you give any credence, though, to those that do?
No, I wouldn't look for him to bounce. Listen, but I also wouldn't, sit here and say you're crazy to take a shot against him in the Derby. He's going to be a very short price in the Kentucky Derby. Is he the most likely winner right now? He definitely is. But at short prices, you're supposed to be looking for ways to try to beat horses like him. I don't know if they can do it, Dan, but I'm not going to argue with anybody looking at the race that way.
Could you beat him with one of the horses coming out of the Travers? Caracaro still has a good amount of upside potential. They threw a lot at him in the Peter Pan off the layoff against winners, stretching all the way out to 1.1 miles. And he ran a very good race behind Country Grammar, and he ran a very good race turning the tables on Country Grammar in the Travers. If he can take a step forward and things go his way from a trip standpoint, maybe he's a surprise package.
Yeah, why can't he take another step forward? This horse is good, man. He ran a good race in the Travers, too. I mean, Javier Castellano did everything right. He just sort of put this horse in Tis the Law's wake, followed him around the track, and took his shot at him. He was just no match in the Travers, but that was only career start number 4 for this horse. You got to believe that there's a step forward coming for Caracaro somewhere down the line. It may not be in Kentucky, but it'll be somewhere. He's a very talented horse.
Max Player is still relatively fresh as well. He was a graded stakes winner before the pandemic-inspired break. He came back and he ran a good third in the Belmont off the layoff, and I thought he was a fine third here. He wasn't really making that much ground on Caracaro late, but he's still lightly raced. He's the kind of horse you give him a puncher's chance in a race like the Derby if he goes, because there's going to be some pace on, and I think the distance is really okay for him.
Yeah, the distance is okay for him. The key to him is it seems like his running style is just you have to take him back and make one run, and that's what they did here. He actually made a nice 4-wide run around the second turn of this race, Dan. But you know what? When you have his running style and the horse on the lead is Tiz the Law and he is not stopping in front, you're not going to win races like that. This horse ran fine to be third, and he's another horse who still has upside.
South Bend finished fourth. I think the jury's still out as to whether he's a dirt or a turf horse. The good news is he's pretty good on both surfaces, and it gives the connections plenty of options. I don't think he's a Derby horse, but I think there are races for him down the road.
Yeah, probably not a grade 1 type horse. He did his best with his trip in this race. Jose Ortiz stayed on the rail the entire way. He got this horse room in the stretch, and he did his best with it. He picked up fourth.
Country Grammar, I think some folks are going to be disappointed at, even though he was an 11-1 shot for Chad Brown, because you figured the distance was going to be okay for him. His Peter Pan was certainly a step in the right direction. He sat a nice trip, and we saw he came under pressure, and there was just nothing there for him. I wonder if now we're looking at Country Grammar saying maybe he'll turn out to be a 4-year-old. Maybe he just needs a little bit more time to mature and find himself.
Yeah, maybe he does. Again, I'm not going to be that hard on him for this race. He tried to keep up close to the pace in here, as he did in the Peter Pan when he won. And it just wasn't the kind of race for that, Dan. Tiz the Law was not going to let these horses into the race. He didn't finish, with that much energy, but I'm just not going to hold this race against Country Grammar.
Did the inexperience work against Uncle Chuck in here? We know he's very green. He's all talent. He's all potential. His races were very good in California. And here, I think, he went to the front and maybe he was exposed as a stakes horse. I really don't want to say that he was exposed as a grade 1 horse. I want to say that they tested him, shipping him across the country, going 1.25 miles, and maybe his lack of experience just got to him. I think you regroup and you turn him into a nice horse next year as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you want to be disappointed in his effort in the Travers, fine. I'm not going to argue with that position. To say that he was exposed as some kind of a fraud in this race, I'm not getting behind that position. I think this horse has a lot of talent. And listen, Baffert, they asked a lot of this horse. They sent him across the country, career start number 3, and put him on the lead with Tiz the Law sitting there breathing down his neck. I'm not holding this race against this horse.
And once Chivalry didn't make the lead, his very slim chances of winning on paper just disappeared completely. He is a sprinter. He needs a turn back in distance. He needs a drop in class. I think he's an okay little sprinter, maybe in the role, maybe not as good, but maybe in the role of like a Jackson Bend type in South Florida.
I wonder when the turn back comes for him. They seem really intent on going long with this horse, but he hasn't run a race beyond 7 furlongs yet. They got to cut this horse back.
If anyone's going to stop Tiz the Law, well, we may not have seen him just yet, although attachment rate, he looks like a nice little horse that just ran second to Art Collector in the Ellis Park Derby. Maybe he's coming into form. Art Collector's there. Honor AP is there. Authentic is there. There are still 3-year-olds, but they got a ways to go if they're going to catch Tiz the Law, the winner of the Travers.